she would give them back.
Perron.
And I'm giving them to Marie, so she
Yeah,
can give them
if
to
you do the same for Jan. Great.
Zurvan.
Okay, that's great. I won't do one that'll, but I'll just do the commentary. So that's excellent. Right, let's go around in the same order, yeah.
Okie dokie.
And here we need the amazing 2-volume work of the Tarot of the Gods, which I can strongly recommend. If you're at all interested in the tarot, you should get this book, 2 volumes. And I did an awful lot of research on it, and really loved it. So Apollo is linked to the card 14 in the Major Arcana, who stands for temperance and balance, and that card is very profound. Many people have wondered where the tarot came from over the centuries. I think there's no doubt about it that it was a survival which surfaced in the Italian Renaissance of the ancient pagan wisdom, and scholars have gone into that. I've given reference to all the books that I could find about the history of the tarot. One of the most important being an 18th century French Freemason who wrote an amazing book called Le Monde Primitif comparé avec le monde moderne. And he was a member of the Lodge of the Nine Sisters, which was a great Masonic network of international thinkers, like Thomas Jefferson was a member, Joseph Priestley in England and so on. And he said the tarot was a descendant of ancient Egyptian spirituality. Antoine Corde de Gévenin was his name. So I think it was, yes, a universal wisdom tradition. Apollo is the god of healing and medicine, in fact. So, as I was saying, the Greek wisdom tradition of temperance is part of this medical tradition. In Aristotle's works on ethics, he talks about the middle way, moderation, in our lives. So, nothing in excess is the kind of motto. And in Apollo also, he was the lord of Delphi and the oracle of Delphi, because he was also the god of prophecy, which is what a friend of mine in Israel calls future intelligence. Future intelligence. That means the ability to see into the future. There's a huge thing now called future studies. There's a centre in Copenhagen that does it. And they're great. They do, academic work on the future, what's going to happen with global warming, what kind of things. But I think we need to plug into an even higher level, the sacred realm, not just the vulgar materialist realm. And that Apollo is the lord of that, the supernatural, prophetic skills that some people have. I'm trying to work with the Delphic Academy to rebirth the Delphic Oracle. And then we would get people that have those abilities. As druids, we can develop those as ovates. I think it's a human gift. We all have sort of feelings about the future, and we all have instincts. Well, should we do this? Should we do that? We need to strengthen those voices, and Apollo can guide how to do that. In a sense, he's the lord of philosophy because he was also the god of beauty and music and harmony and the muses. And so when Plato founded the Academy in Athens, dedicated to the 9 muses, he was in the tradition of Apollo, effectively. And that's why I've set up here. We're in the room of Apollo, actually, so it's a good card to get. Very synchronistic. Thank you. I think what Apollo is saying is we should remember that the point of all this is to cultivate wisdom, higher knowledge, beauty, harmony, and ultimately peace, although Apollo was also the lord of archery. And so if you have to, occasionally, somebody is so totally crazy that you have to take them out, then make sure the aim is accurate. I've always been a fan of Robin Hood. He was obviously a devotee of Apollo as Lord of Archery. And I took a job once in Sherwood Forest at the Sherwood Academy as head of humanities in Nottinghamshire, which is where Robin Hood used to hang out. And I've been to the Major Oak there. So Nottinghamshire and Robin Hood, I think he was the Lord of the Forest, Apollo, with his best friend who's called Dionysus, who's the sort of the other side of Apollo. And Nietzsche talked about their relationship. But I don't see a conflict or war between Apollo and Dionysus. I think they're... And in fact, Dionysus became the lord of Delphi. At certain times of the year, Apollo would go up north, it was said in tradition. So, the tarot card of temperance is good, Enjoy your addictions, but manage them so they don't overtake you. Life is one, we're all addicted to food or whatever it is, Do it in moderation and enjoy it. And that's pleasure. That's what Epicurus talked about. Enjoy love relationships, but don't do it to obsession and when it becomes pathological, Choose the wisdom affair path. That's the Apollo version. Anyway, that's a great card. Thank you, Noah. Well done. Okay, what have you got?
Can I pass it through?
Yes, 13, Perun.
13, yes. Well, this is we had him last week. I'm pretty sure. He stands for the tarot, a major arcana of death.
Mm.
So
I picked up, not last week, 2 weeks ago.
you picked it out, yeah. So he is the Slavic god of death, but he was the chief god of the Slavs and of Russia. And Finland, your country, has got this long border with Russia, where there's simmering tensions, and now you're in NATO and they're not, and there's this war going on in Eastern Europe. It's like all Perun, jostling around. And there's too much death going on. I mean, poor people in Ukraine and Russia are dying. And in Palestine, Gaza's got a ceasefire, but the West Bank is now going on with Jenin being attacked. And I just think it's such a trivial waste of life. We should be doing philosophy clubs, learning wisdom, enjoying each other, making music, making art, making poetry. Apollo is the lord of poetry, of course, by the way. Instead of killing each other, what a stupid thing to be doing. And Perun himself knows that deep down. He was. There's a whole thing in the book about. Some like to visualize Perun as a red-bearded man brandishing an axe, riding in a chariot across the sky. He also carried a magical bow with fearsome arrows, a great club and a spear, and was regarded by the Slavs as the patron deity of warriors, which is why I've put him with the death card in this tarot. But you see, I've met many warriors in my time. I mean, I've met generals who've worked for peace, because the greatest warrior knows that war is actually a failure. When the warrior fails, you go to war. You should be able to reach like a mutual recognition of respect across the battle lines. And in ancient Celtic world, when Celtic armies used to want to go to war, which they did quite often, they're quite fierce people, the Celts, it was us Druids that would walk between the ranks of opposing armies and tick them off and say, for God's sake, this is a waste, I know you, I know you, I know your mother, I know your father. Go home, do some feasting, do some art, get the storytellers out, Don't kill each other, because that's just a waste of life. And I'd say the same to the Ukrainians and Russians and the Israelis and Palestinians. It represents an intellectual failure. And Perun is not happy about this. But he, so He was often made of a statue with 3 heads, showing that he was omnidirectional, and that relates to Luch, the god of many, roles, many guises. And so Perun is, in a sense, they're all one deity, all of these, but they're just seen through different lenses. And so the wisdom of Perun is interesting. And some Russians have tried to build a temple to Perun near Novgorod. He was the original deity there. And there is now a recognised Russian new faith, pagan ancient faith, which worships Perun. Well, I just want them to emphasise the peace aspect of this. Because, like Jung said, when the Germans all started worshipping Wotan and then went and did blitzkriegs and attacked neighbouring countries, that was a mistake. It was a re-arising of the suppressed unconscious, as Jung put it. Well, I don't think we can afford to have that with Perun energy. We have to have it as the peace energy. And that's why the Russians accepted Christianity, because they saw Christ as the Lord of death, who'd conquered death, and therefore brought immortality. And we should remember that. So anyway, that's a few thoughts. Why maybe you've invoked him into the conversation. Any comments? Have you come across Perun before? Have you met people that?
No, I haven't come across Perun.
Okay. Now you have. You met him, yeah. Okay, and you've got
Zurvan,
number
17.
Right, number 17, the star in normal tarots. And in my tarot, he's Zurvan. Now, this is interesting because we were talking, recently about the star as being a symbol of the highest aspiration that we can attain, and the fact that we all come from stardust. We are stars descended into material form as humans. The bodies, the physical matter that we're made of comes from stars, and the elements, and also the photons that come from our star. I mean, our atoms came from other stars, which exploded eons ago before this sun even started going. But this sun is now pumping out photons that then give us energy through our food. So we're all made of stardust. And this card is incredibly wise and profound. He was the Zoroastrian primeval god, older than Ahura Mazda and Angra Mainyu. So the good god, Ahura Mazda, who wants righteousness and truth. Angra Mainyu, the wicked god, the devil if you want. Before them was Zurvan, who's the god of infinite time. And Heidegger puzzled about time in his famous work, Being and Time. I think he was onto the Zurvan thing. It was a chap called Professor Zehner of Oxford University Religious Studies Department who wrote a huge book on Zurvan in the 1950s and discovered his importance in esoteric traditions within Zoroastrianism. And we've also found archaeologists have discovered that the ancients were quite clever. They married time, Chronos, and Eon with Zurvan, Akarana, which means endless time. He was identified both with Chronos and Eon. And Mithras, who's the Lord of Light, is also seen as an emanation from timeless being, or Zurvan. So the paradox about time is that it's all now. Everything is happening in the infinite present. If we are going to solve the problems of the world, it has to be now. And there's a beautiful Buddhist clock I saw recently, which I'd love to get one. And all the hands, instead of having 1, 2, 3, 4 to 12 round, it all points to now. So every hour is now. So whenever you look at the time, it's always saying now. That to me is a transcendental way of dealing with time. It's always the right moment. it's always the opportune moment to act. And I think that's what Nietzsche was saying in Beyond Good and Evil. We come from the eternal source, which is infinite time. The first reference to Zervan found in classical literature is by Eudamus of Rhodes, who lived from 370 to 300 BC and was a direct pupil of Aristotle. Eudamus was a polymathic philosopher, and really he should have succeeded Aristotle as head of the Lyceum. But Aristotle named Theophrastus in his will, so Eudamus went to Rhodes and founded his own school of philosophy. Bless him. I love Rhodes. It's an amazing place. I've been there. And he taught logic, physics, biology, zoology, metaphysics and comparative religion. And I wish we had the lost writings of Eudamus, because we don't have Aristotle's work on comparative religion. But this guy Eudamus would have been writing one, and he knew about Zervan. Now that's really interesting. Also, little news flash, because we had Apollo. So when Aristotle set up the Lyceum, he called it after Apollo Lysius, Apollo the light bringer. So, and that's the French school system. The Lycée is named after that. So the French school system is named after Apollo's academy, the Lyceum. And this chap taught there. Eudamus described in a fragment that's come down a sect of the Medes that considered space and time, Zervan, to be the primordial father of both Ahura Mazda and Angra Mainyu. Interesting. I mean, I think Einstein, by talking about space-time, he was onto Zervan. If we say space-time is one thing and it's the origin of everything, then what it is becomes very important.
Relatively.
Another philosopher who knew about it was called Damascius, who was the last head of the Platonic Academy in Athens, in fact, and who was a very great thinker. When I lived in Scotland, I got his works out. They've survived. This guy was the last head of the Platonic school in Athens, lived from 458 to 540 AD, and when the Christian emperor of Byzantium shut the academy down, he went off to Persia in a huff, because he didn't want to have his freedom of speech interrupted. Quite right. That's why I was greatly honoured to be a visiting lecturer at a Persian university recently, in Qom, University of Denominations and Religions. I mean, I think Persia, instead of making war between Persia and Israel and the West, we should be studying each other's traditions. And I'm sure there are Iranian philosophical experts that know all about Zervan, and they probably found some ancient cave there with the lost scrolls of Zervanites. Yes, we should be talking philosophy as Damascus did, instead of nonsense and war. So anyway, there we are. Any questions about Zervan? Have you come across him before?
No.
Well, now you know, the Lord of Infinite Time. So if anyone starts hassling you, the hotel's got to be finished by blah blah blah, just say, I'm following Zervan.
Yeah. And it's going to be finished at the right time.
At the right time.
Divine timing.
Divine timing, yeah. And also this card is also the Sikh god called Akal, which is the Sikh name for the infinite timelessness of God, the one Lord. So I love the Sikh religion, and I've married the two, so it's Zervan and Akal, discovered in the Guru Granth Sahib, the Sikh scriptures of Punjab. And I'll end with this quote from the Guru Granth Sahib, the Mul Mantra, which is the opening verse. There is one God, named Truth, the Creator, without fear, without hate, timeless in form, Akal, beyond birth, self-existent, known by the grace of the Gurus. So, anyway, may that Akal Zervan bring light to us all as we go about our lives. Okay, well, talking of time, I think we'll finish there. Is that all right?
Hi, thank you.
Any final questions we can discuss, chilling over a glass of wine afterwards? Okay, thank you.